feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Shrimp Tank right here in our virtual Shrimp Tank studios today. I'm your co-host, Ted Jenkin, here with my co-host, Lee Heisman, who's the owner of many, many things. He may own all of Woodstock at this point. It's possible that he owns all of it. And he's got a special background today. We'll talk about that in just a minute, Lee, in just a minute. And of course, we'll bring in our guest today in just a few minutes in here, John Ray, who's the founder of Fortify Consulting. Today, we're going to talk a little about the business of fraud and what happens if you have loss in your business. How does that affect you? We're going to talk more about that. And I think it's a very important topic with a lot of changes that are going on. But before we get into that, and by the way, you can always get a replay of all of the broadcasts at shrimptankpodcast.com. Check us out in all of our cities. We just opened up Knoxville, Tennessee with the amazing T. Scott Jones up there, who's killing it. We're about to open Columbus, Ohio. We're in Harrisburg, Charleston, Atlanta, obviously, Boca Raton, Sarasota, Boston, LA, Seattle, Houston, so many cities just across the United States exploding because people want to hear the stories. They want to know how to get that combination of street smarts and book smarts. Now, I want to ask you, our listeners, our viewers, two favors today. Number one, go to YouTube, go to our channel, click the button subscribe. Subscribe to our channel. Make sure that you click notifications so you can get all the videos of things like today and the post-show wrap-ups that Lee and I do. And go to Spotify or go to iHeartRadio, download us, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, SoundCloud, or anywhere around the internet if you want to get the goods in your car and you want to learn from other entrepreneurs. Now, Lee, there are a lot of people that have been excited as of late because of all this GameStop, Reddit craziness in the stock market. Now, we'll talk to John a little bit about this. It's bleeding into cryptocurrency and silver and all kinds of stuff. But I want to know from you as an owner and as an investor in general. I see that you've got a very prominent picture behind you. What do you think about business owners that want to invest in collectibles, whether that's bobbleheads or it's trading cards or coins or stamps or even fine art?
So Ted, yes, thank you for letting me take off my virtual screen today. I happen to have artwork, Ted. Now that's being hung behind me on concrete with wires. So if I did not spend the multiple hours to make it level with wires, I would have taken it down so it wasn't prevalent in the room. Right. But if you look around my home office, I have multiple pieces of art. That's more of a heartfelt purchase. Investment-wise, I don't see me reselling that or the other art in my office. So sometimes you spend a lot of money on.
Well, a lot of owners try to get toys. They buy things that are like, nobody else has. Now, who's the artist of that particular?
This is a very popular artist. If people know it, they know it by seeing it. It's Alex Ross. He'll take superheroes and characters and make them look more realistic, more as if you were to actually meet them. So these are about 15 years old, 20 years old, Ted. I bought them a long time ago. My wife would never let me put them upstairs in the household, so they're stuck in my basement office. But right. To the point of in the man cave, but to the point of the collectibles, there's a lot of products out there now. I remember trading baseball cards and trading all the, the trading cards when we grew up. Of course, you get the Topps pack, TOPPS, sure. But now there's virtual packs. And it's quite amazing because of the scarcity, people on these virtual Topps websites, you have a limited amount of highlights. You're actually purchasing not just the card of the player, but you're purchasing a LeBron James highlight, goodness gracious, a Michael Jordan highlight from years ago. So you're spending a tremendous amount of money for these highlights, and now they're trading, Ted, for in excess of $10,000 to $50,000 for one-time highlights that you are the one that owns it. It's terrifying. Wow. It's skyrocketing, but it's also that supply and demand because there's only one out there. What are your thoughts on that?
We'll bring in John in just a second. I want to get your take today. In the news, Elon Musk, one of your favorites, he decided that as part of Tesla's cash, the cash management in the company, they would pick up $1.5 billion of Bitcoin. And I wonder what your take is on that. And owners that are sitting on cash now, have they ever thought about cryptocurrency as a form of cash?
To me or to John? I think it's to John.
I'm curious what you think about that. Is it a bold move, $1.5 billion?
Well, I'll tell you this much before, John, you jump in, and welcome to the show, John. Before you jump in, again, the fact that Elon's investing 1.5 billion into a cryptocurrency, a Bitcoin, I look into it as well myself. I dabble into the crypto. I will guarantee you it is the wave of the future. I will also guarantee you that banks that I know intimately are not a fan of it because it's not regulated by our government.
Right.
So it's a little flyer out there, Ted. It's a risk, but it could be the future.
So I know we're going to bring in John, Fortify Consulting today. He's the founder of the company. They do a ton of things around fraud and analytics for more than a decade. And I know this is John's probably not the staple of your business, but I wanted to lead in with this question today because given the fact that just cryptocurrency in general, things on the blockchain have no government oversight, they're not regulated. People forget there's no Bitcoin bank. You don't walk down to the corner and say, give me some Bitcoins. How in the heck are people going to protect themselves from fraud and things like that where, surely in a place where there's billions, if not soon to be trillions of dollars transferring hands that nobody can see and there's no oversight, how's the average person going to protect themselves?
Yeah. This is not only a common problem for any kind of crypto wallets or cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, but just in general bank accounts. There's certainly a spike in fraud going on since the pandemic hit. But you always got to look out for monitoring your own transactions. You want to have two-factor authentication turned on, and just kind of make sure that you keep alerts and you watch into them and look into your accounts, your wallets, whatever activity that you don't recognize. Be sure you follow up with that because no one cares about you losing money more than you do. No matter what bank or institution says, you got to take action yourself and just keep an eye, be vigilant. That's the biggest thing that you can do.
Well, I wanted to ask you to start this off. I think when companies look at figuring out how to cut fraud losses, one of the big things, obviously, and Lee, obviously, with a top-notch IT company in the country, knows a lot about this, but I'm wondering not only your take, curious about Lee's take around email and how sophisticated the criminals have become, like on email, and how you can help your company potentially reduce this. Because I don't think I've heard of a company. I actually experienced this myself with one of my employees who was a really smart employee but got duped themselves. How can you protect yourself as a company?
Yeah, education is the biggest thing for your employees. In fraud, you can have as many protections put out there as you want, but at the end of the day, your employees are really your last line of defense. One of the easiest ways that hackers or fraudsters will break into a computer systems network is to load up some type of malware on a like a little thumb drive or something like that, and just throw it near the building or in the building. Because sure enough, someone's going to come around, pick it up, and say, "I wonder what's on this." Plug it in, and they got a backdoor right then and there. Not that sophisticated, just putting something out there where human curiosity is going to get the best of them.
And speaking of human curiosity, John, you also look at, even though you can put as much two-factor authentication, your employees are the easiest way and the easiest access, or even yourself. So not just the employees, but even yourself getting emails. You've seen, and it's very common, John, an example is you may get an email from me, Lee Heisman. It says Lee Heisman across the top. We talk about something. I don't have any weird stuff in my email, and I have links or something for you to click. You may end up clicking that even yourself. So what do you recommend for our listeners out there when something, it looks like a duck, it walks like a duck, it quacks like a duck, but it's not actually, it's a horse posed as a duck? What do you do?
Yeah. Any kind of IT support that you got, whether it's going to be in-house or for a smaller organization, they're going to have this outsourced with another company. You want to send that along to them and just ask them to verify this information, because they'll do a little bit of reconnaissance to see what the link is, where did this actually come from, did the person spoof the email address, and they should be able to give you feedback on the safety or not. But if there's ever a doubt, don't ever click anything. What you can always do is, this is usually going to be posing as somebody else. Reach out to the person outside of that email and just call them up on the business phone, whatever you've got, and just say, "Hey, I got this email from you. I want to verify that you actually sent this." And most of the time they'll say, "Oh yeah, that was mine." But every once in a while they'll say, "I don't know what you're talking about." And pretty much right then and there, this is an attack going on. These are called business account compromises. Where these emails are sort of faked and sent in. A lot of times they'll be sent into HR or accounts, payable, where they'll say, "Hey, I need the routing information changed to this new bank." And if you don't think twice, you don't, reach out to, the actual customer, you'll send the money and it's gone. There's no recovery for it.
Ted, I have a quick question for John.
I would say,
Go
Lee,
ahead.
isn't it ironic though that with all the technology today, simply saying to the person, call me or meet me, generally snuffs out 99% of these, doesn't it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But you know what? Everyone wants things instant, and that's been great for us as consumers, but it's been great for fraudsters as well because they know that there's a lot of vulnerabilities because people are, for lack of a better word, lazy. They just want their accounts paid now. They want their bank sent money in immediately. But with that means increased risk if someone is coming in and taking over your account or sent you fraudulent documents.
Right.
So, John, Ted, I have a good one here, which is I'm throwing a curveball to John, and it's gonna back our way and reverse engineer a little bit of his history. So most people know their arithmetic tables, Ted. The ones and the 1 to 10, and you learn that when you're younger. But John, if I were to ask you 35 times 19, I'm pulling up a calculator. 35 times 19, John, go. Tell me.
Oh God, I'm just going to throw out 4,057.
No, 665. I was hoping John could do that, Ted, because John has a bachelor's degree in quantitative finance and a master's in applied statistics. So I thought he was a human robot. When you have an undergraduate in quantitative finance and a master's in applied statistics, I thought you could just knock out numbers. I could drop 2 picks on the ground. You would pick them up and tell me how many are there.
Well, the funny thing about that is, as I progressed along in both of those degrees, I stopped using numbers and you start using symbols and distributions, imaginary numbers, things like that. And so the arithmetic, that becomes boring and you don't really use that anymore. You save that for the calculator. Give me the fun stuff like the sigmas, the mu's, the epsilons, things like that.
John, so I wanted to ask you, share the audience in here. You go into a company, they may have a hodgepodge of plans in place right now. How do you go in and assess what kind of revenue protection and enablement to put into place? And do you recommend that firms today buy cyber liability insurance?
That's a good question. The first part of that is just the assessment. You want to look at the product offering, what's out there that you're marketing. You want to see what are the endpoints that different consumers can interact with your company. And a lot of times that's going to be going into a physical store, having an app, there's a web portal, a call center, any number of these things that for each one that you open up to make things easier on your consumer, you now have to protect it from fraud. And so you have to investigate each one of those, tendrils or whatever that's going out into the wild. As far as cybersecurity insurance goes, I'm not too well versed in what that looks like, what the pricing might be, but it's all part of the risk management process. If it's going to cost you an arm and a leg and you can't really survive as a company, maybe you have to risk it going some other way or hire a consultant to come in and help you implement best practices and save a little bit of money that way. But the insurance is definitely something to consider. As you see every day, there's a new data breach that pops up.
So John, as you heard early on, and for our listeners, we have studios across the entire country, but it seems as though there's a geolocation type of aspect to fraud. And it's something that I noticed on your website that you focus on. Are different regions affected differently by fraud? I would think it would just be even across the board.
Yeah, it's where it comes from is the biggest thing. There's a few hotspots in, say, Miami. That's going to be one of the big pieces that any kind of investigator will tell you. Southern California, a few places in Kentucky and Ohio, and then the Texas-Mexico border. There's a lot of these hotspots where this stuff originates from. And that's because they're either grabbing identities and trying to say that they live there, or a lot of the device and IP infrastructure comes out of these spots. So someone's sitting in a house applying for 10 different loans a day. Well, their IP address is coming back from that particular house unless they've got an anonymous proxy. But yeah, the geolocation is definitely good to look at for where these requests are coming in from. But then also, if I'm just kind of a low-level criminal and I've just stolen mail from a bunch of my neighbors, and you see that you're getting applications from one zip code that you would normally never get, that could be suspicious as well. So you look at a few different things and patterns and trends about these geo hotspots.
John, I saw on one of your recent quarterly fraud reports that identity theft is going through the roof right now. Even since 2016, 2017, the numbers are spiking. is it hot or not for us to actually buy something like a LifeLock? Does that actually even do anything, or are there steps you should be taking yourself to try to protect your identity?
Yeah, I think buying a service can certainly help. The biggest thing that you can do is go and actually freeze your credit file with the major bureaus, because that's going to be where anyone that's trying to assess you for creditworthiness, they're going to go there right off the bat. If it's frozen, they know something is up, and so they'll try and contact you via a few different methods. That's probably your best barrier, because fraudsters, they like the path of least resistance. You give them just one hurdle, they'll usually go to somebody else. So you just really, you don't want to be the best, or you don't have to be the best. You just don't want to be the slowest.
And John, a lot of people are talking about now that the new real valuable commodity is data or data. Everybody wants your data. And I had seen a recent episode about how much the Chinese are into hacking our bio data, the data about our genes and genealogy. Do people even need to worry right now that when they do a 23andMe or an ancestry about what they're really giving away, that data may in fact be sold to people like the Chinese that are watching our biometrics to sell us future products down the road?
Well, unfortunately, your information's already out there. So to be concerned about it now, it's
Right.
already leaked. It's too late. The cat's out of the bag. There's an app called Telegram. You can download it for free and look around on it. And you can do some searches on frauds, scams, as well as sauce. And you'll see that a lot of people are just wheeling and dealing identities and bank accounts. And you'll see screenshots of people logging in, accessing Cash App. So it's already out there. So your mentality shouldn't be, how do I protect myself in the future? It should be, I assume my information's already out there. So how do I make sure that I'm going to spot it once it comes for me?
So John, rolling into our hot or not section where we throw some topics out at you. And again, you can elaborate where you feel appropriate, of course. I'm going to ask hot or not, a password manager.
Ooh, I would say hot, simply because of all the different accounts that you got to go out there and create a strong password for. Once you start using the same one everywhere else, once that one is found out, you're kind of caught with all your accounts. So definitely hot.
Yeah, I've said that before, and I've done some presentations, John, on this where, people, their username is usually their email address. On occasion, you have a few places that allow you to create a username, but once you start using, hey, I'm going to use my same password for my 6 or 7 top places, or maybe just all of them, you get a little lazy when you sign up. Before you know it, you're using that same password at some very inconsequential site. And when that site does get hacked, they're going to take your username and password and hit the top 1,000 sites, and most surely you will definitely have a breach. And it's funny, I had forced password manager and Ted, very disgruntled individual, Ted, when he started using it. And overly disgruntled, but I think I was over his shoulder the other day, John, and I saw that he actually was using it. He was unhappy, but he was using it. So it's a hard thing to do. It's like eating your vegetables, but you really have to start doing it. I would agree.
How about a hot or not, John? Should a company invest the money to get a phishing program, something that, they can see which employees seem to be less smarter than the other ones?
Yeah, you're going to learn a lot about your employees and some of their habits. But I think it's great because you'll end up having those that do click, it'll be the little fake phishing campaign. They'll end up clicking on it and, basically get busted. So it's kind of a self-learning opportunity where you kind of see like, oh my gosh, I didn't think this was fake or anything like that. But yeah, great.
Let me give you another quick hot or not in here. You open up an internet screen and obviously at least, and more than me, I believe it's the GDPR rules that changed that the websites either have to ask you if you basically accept cookies or not. And is it hot or not to click that? People still don't know. So a lot of times people just click yes because they want to move on. Sometimes but nobody's reading it, John. Nobody's reading that document at all. What am I giving up there?
You know what? I guess I'm going to do a curveball and say not, for that simple matter. It's like the terms and conditions that you're expected to read and agree to.
No
one does it. Yeah, no.
What are you giving away when you click that button? Are you really allowing them to basically slap handcuffs on your wrist and then they can basically track your presence forever?
I think there's some term limits to the GDPR about how long they can store it, but yeah, I mean, you're effectively giving away a ton of information, and it's all up to whatever you're comfortable with or whatever site you want to allow to scrape that information about you. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. If they help actually, your experience with using their products and services, maybe it's worthwhile. If you're
Right.
just browsing somewhere, no, not at all.
So John, I actually had to click accept cookies to get into your website, by the way.
Yeah.
just so you're aware. So you scraped some information from me, but hot or not, John, the dark web.
The dark web, definitely hot. If you can, well, I'd say not if you're a novice and you're trying to go out there and look around for it, because you'll end up just getting all kinds of problems on your computer.
And please elaborate for our listeners. People may have heard of it, may not, may have seen Dark Web Part 2, 3, or 4 in the movies, or the streaming Netflix. Give our listeners your experience with the dark web and what it is exactly.
Yes, the dark web is what you're probably thinking of are these things called torrents, where you can go through a few different network of different pass-through servers. So your information is anonymized and no one knows, who you are while you're getting access to different files, forums, chatting areas. You can download movies for free, and before they come out, whatever's leaked. This is also where you can buy different identities online. It's a whole mess of stuff out there. I think Silk Road was the biggest example. This was an online, quote, dark website that you could go and buy all kinds of drugs. I think there was prostitution going on there. So they shut the place down. But
This understands why Lee was on it. Now I know why you were on it.
Ted, it's how I make my money. I was offering that service, so be clear. I've always wanted to be Richard Gere in American Gigolo. I mean, who does not want to? I want to hang upside down and do my sit-ups, Ted, just like Richard did. So.
I see it.
Well, I wanted to take a quick break to allow we usually do commercials, but a shout out to our sponsors, Savant, for all of your IT needs that are out there. I mean, I got to tell you what, I've used these guys personally for more than a decade now. You want your problem solved 24/7, make sure that your business keeps running and your people aren't trying to fix their own computers or their own problems. These are the guys to do it. They do business all around the country. And our social media sponsors, HyperChat Social. Whether you want branding, whether you want lead generation, either way, you have to figure out how to create more top line ROI for your business. The way to do that is to get HyperChat Social right on your side. And as always, if you didn't see or you don't get to watch the whole thing in here and you want to just listen to the audio, you can certainly go to shrimptankpodcast.com and hear our entire interview with John. As always, download us at Spotify, iHeartRadio, and see many of the other cities. But of course, go to our YouTube channel and click subscribe. That is the easiest thing to do. John, I want to get into a little bit of our plead the fifth section. And I want to open up with asking you, who's our biggest threat for fraud right now? Is it the Chinese? Is it the Russians? Or is it dumb people who simply don't protect themselves? Now, I'm calling them dumb. You don't have to call them dumb.
You said less smart earlier, Ted.
Yeah,
you were very politically
now
correct.
they've gone to dumb. They went down on the totem pole.
Yes,
Is
devolved.
I would say not dumb, but I would say uneducated Americans who are really the biggest problem about how to protect themselves.
Unfortunately, I think it's the uneducated Americans, because you don't know, like these little apps that you download for free. You think you're just getting something for free, but of course that never exists. That's collecting your information right there. There's probably some bad stuff you've already downloaded. It's just the uneducation. All the sophisticated stuff you're hearing about Russia and China, that's certainly a problem, but we have counterintelligence that are, fighting with them as well. It's your day-to-day is just going to be making a simple mistake.
So John, in your experience, and again, we don't want you to plead the fifth, but in your experience protecting your clients and working the way that you have, give us, and please, for our listeners, everybody thinks being an entrepreneur and a business owner is very easy. Everybody thinks you make it look easy and it doesn't look like there's any challenges, but what has been one of your largest failures, something that you've learned from in terms of the work that you do for your clientele, something maybe you didn't have the foresight on because you were still new to the industry?
That's a really good question. I think the biggest challenge is, especially for me, is finding the right client who has the right problem. And maybe this isn't really applicable to others, but when someone has an issue in their business with fraud, it's usually an alarm bell and you need to fix it right then and there. So if they don't, know me, or I've never been introduced to them or whatever, it's unlikely that I'll end up getting a call, or I can't, find them, taking my time over the months and months. So it's really about being at the right place at the right time to help these guys out.
Now, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. As you've had a client, what mistakes have you made while you were protecting that client? Is there something that, because John, you can only have, your crystal ball is only so clear, right? It can only forecast so much. What is something maybe that you've learned, or the industry's changed, where you say, wow, I didn't protect them the way that I should have, but I'm going to protect them and clients going forward? Is there anything glaring in your mind that you learned from where there might have been something where there was a little lack of foresight?
Oh, I'm going to have to plead the fifth on this one. Being a sensitive nature, I don't want to give away any kind of secrets of what may have been left behind.
Fair. And, and it wasn't a pick. I have to say, John, a good answer, by the way. It was appropriate answer. But, I'm in the tech world, of course, and I would say that the industry is changing so fast. And, John, you may concur with me, that those phishing campaigns, we do that for clients as well. But maybe we might not have been the first company to institute a phishing campaign, until things start happening more and more, and you see the trend of these hackers. You're kind of almost running a step behind them, right? It's almost hard to stay ahead of them. So, we make constant mistakes and look to see what damage was done, fix the damage, and then immediately start instituting policies going forward.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, plead the fifth, somebody's building a company. Are Macs really better than PCs in an environment?
Oh, I'm going to say yes, unless you're not computer savvy, and then stick with Windows. But if you're doing anything IT oriented, my background has been that Macs are better.
Fair. I'm going to ask a personal question, of course, Ted. I always run to the personal side. How recently with the National Football, obviously, or not our NFL, which last night we know just happened with Brady, but you're Tide. How long have you been a Tide fan, and do you ever waver from being a Tide fan?
Oh gosh, I wasn't as big of a Tide fan until I went there for 7 years for undergraduate and graduate degree. That really seared it in there, and then of course we got in Nick Saban and have been on a tear ever since. But to be fair, when I was there, we were rarely making a bowl game. We were doing terrible. We had coaching turnover, so I really went through it. So I'm a proud fan, and I'll back that up every day. I didn't jump on the bandwagon.
What are they going to be like this year? Are they going to do well or no?
They're always going to do well. It's just, are we going to mess up one of the games towards the end of the year that might jeopardize making it to the playoff? Or even if we do make it to the playoff, if we drop the ball at some point, with any kind of sports activities, it all comes down to right there at the end when you've got the tournament going. Then nothing else matters.
I'll throw another personal question at John. Being married to an entrepreneur, having an entrepreneur as a father to your two wonderful children, is there a training session? Is there a break-in session to get your family on board with being married or having your father be an entrepreneur? Or does it just come easy?
The struggle wasn't getting them on board. The struggle is trying to balance everything on a day-to-day basis. It seems like when I became an entrepreneur, my wife assumed that I would be available for house duties 24/7. So that's been the toughest thing, is trying to draw a line somewhere.
Fair. And I think that's the case for a lot of entrepreneurs. I think it's a break-in period. No family ever just welcomes it, of course, but it's part of, it is truly, when you're an entrepreneur out there, and for our listeners and our entrepreneurs, it's a team environment. Your children, your spouses, they have to be on board from the beginning as well, or you're going to have an environment that's not going to be very productive. So I think it's a training period for everybody involved.
Yeah, I like that. Training period is appropriate.
All right, I give you one more plead the fifth. Autonomous driving, dangerous or not?
Not. Well, right now, I don't know. In the future, I think it's going to be safer than some of these guys, especially in the Atlanta area, that are driving around like
There's no way, John, somebody could hack the grid and make thousands of cars just go off the road.
Oh, totally. Yeah. But, you got people that are doing just as bad every single day here right now. So
that's
what's
true.
going to be better?
Everyone thinks that 400 is the Indianapolis Speedway.
Well, Ted, you know, and John, I gotta throw this stat at you because I'm not a stat guy, but I'm talking to a stat guy that in America, for every 500,000 miles driven by regular cars and regular people, there's one accident every 500,000 miles. With the Tesla auto drive system, there's one accident every 5 million miles. So it's literally a 10-to-1 ratio of safer driving using the Tesla auto drive system.
Yeah, this is a great example of statistics are nothing but lies and damn lies. So if you got to think about, where did this information come from? Who is the general population for that first figure, one accident every 500,000 miles? Who is the demographic that owns a Tesla? Is it going to be, you know, little Johnny who just turned 16 and gets a brand new car and is out there driving all night long? It's probably someone who's, you know, older, more established, you know, more responsible because they can afford the car. So you got to think about the numbers or what's going on under the numbers so you can make an accurate comparison.
Fair. And I think they were only speaking of the auto drive miles, not the driven miles of a Tesla vehicle, but when the car is in the auto drive mode. Yeah. So it might change that variable. But John, time flies when you're having fun. I will tell you, we knocked out 35 minutes like that minimum. How do people get in touch with you if they need, I mean, well, everybody needs your service, right? Everybody does, but someone that you may work with, what's the best kind of client for you? And then how would that client get in touch with you?
Best kind of client is really anyone in the financial services, whether they're offering loans, credit, or whatever, or they're trying to, sell their products via some type of loan, 0% interest. You know, anything that involves a heightened level of risk in the financial market. You can go to fortifyconsultingllc.com and check out information there. I've got, a place to reach out to me through the website there. You can check out some of the blogs. But yeah, that's going to be the best way for sure.
Very cool stuff. Well, John, thanks for joining us today. Again, check out fortifyconsultingllc.com. It's a place to get John Ray. You need to do analytics on the business. You're thinking about loss prevention. I mean, all those kinds of things, are going to be not only important today, but as we become more digitized as businesses, which is where everything is headed across the board, you're going to need this kind of protection to protect you, your employees, and your business. So, John, thanks so much for joining us on the program today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, look forward to seeing y'all next week right here on the Shrimp Tank. Make sure you also check out our last episode that we did with Jenny Benura, CEO of Harry Norman Realtors. Watch this full one of John today. This is the idea. If you want to get a combination of book smarts and street smarts and get that MBA, the best way to do it is to learn from the best entrepreneurs in the country right here on the Shrimp Tank. Thanks.
I've been feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank.